And Christian, if you want to go to the next slide, I can go ahead and introduce you. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining this webinar, an important topic on the application of the planetGOLD criteria using the digital app Bloom. We have some important information from the Alliance for Responsible Mining on their experience in the field. And just if you're not speaking, if you don't mind being on mute, thank you. Also, you should have received an email yesterday with these presentations in English and Spanish. Apologies, the French one is coming after the webinar today. The presentation will be conducted in Spanish. So for those of you, the English version is easier for you to follow. You should have that in your email. And I believe we'll be sharing a link to that PDF in the chat here in a moment as well. And I'd like to go ahead and pass it on to Christian and to Chris of ARM.
Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes.
Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening. I would just like to confirm that you can all hear me well and that the interpretation is working well. Please, can you confirm?
Yes. On the English channel, yes.
Perfect, then. Thank you so much. Well, once again, it is a pleasure to see you all again. I believe we had a chance to have a prior conversations in other webinars and other sessions. Still, allow me to introduce myself. We are AMR, Alliance for Responsible Mining, for its acronym in Spanish. My name is Cristian Arias. I am in charge of the sustainable and responsible and sustainable storage area. With my colleague here, we will present to you the work that we've done thus far regarding the development of our workshops. So we want to introduce a technological app for follow-up and implementation of the planetGOLD criteria. These are criteria adopted for small mining organizations and for projects involving artisanal mining. So to get the most out of this presentation, I will now pass on to the next slide. And I would like to just take a moment to give you some brief context. I would like to point out the general objectives of the counseling session that we developed with the RDC team and one additional partner, sorry. So the objective was to document the implemented supply chain process mechanisms implemented during phase 1. Now, harnessing that knowledge and harnessing those learned lessons on the challenges and obstacles when it comes to connecting different mining groups or groups of miners who are receiving support from several programs, and to get them to adopt mercury-free processes. The second large objective from our advisory session was to provide you, to all of you, the people who are responsible for the planetGOLD projects in phase 2, we want to provide you with tools in order to properly document and follow up on the compliance with planetGOLD criteria. We will take a moment to discuss this topic more in detail during the presentation. We also had a very interesting opportunity. We had a chance to develop a mobile app. This pilot project, this tool is a pilot project that uses a digital interface to do follow-up activities on planetGOLD criteria. This is why it's written down here in red, because I want to share that with you. And finally, we also included an analysis or a cross-reference analysis on those due diligence mechanisms. Yes, sorry. Sorry, I think somebody turned on their microphone. So I will continue if that's okay. Yes, thank you very much. Aside from that, yes, we were discussing a cross-reference analysis on these different obstacles, and we mentioned some cases of success, which we were able to present in the countries in phase one, the buildup of mercury-free supply chains. So I would just like to make a brief reminder for you to please, well, as global coordinators, as project coordinators in each of your respective countries, maybe you can look at the previous work and that means essentially these experiences in the development of supply chains. The compliance and in coordination and compliance with planetGOLD criteria, we can see the results and outcomes, and we have a breakdown on a per country basis: Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Burkina Faso, Mongolia, Philippines, and many other countries who are also a part of this very important exercise in supply chain buildup. We leave these resources for you. Be sure to visit their webpage and make use of this knowledge so that in your own countries, you can benefit from the experiences of other colleagues around the world, as well as their lessons learned. The other topic that we want to highlight in this presentation before we get into the meat of this presentation is to remind you that the content developed during this advisory session was intended to provide you with tools, as territory coordinators and as managers in phase 2 planetGOLD projects. It is a tool to ease access and management in compliance with planetGOLD criteria. So, as you see, these tools are available in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and French. And we focus on 2 main topics. Number 1, to try to gain some understanding on what supply chains are, how they work, to understand what are the market opportunities in the formal markets, to also get a sense of what are the interactions and what is the dynamic of precious metals trading throughout the world. So that was very important to highlight in this space. And in a second set of these tools, you will also be able to find any and all things related to each of the different modules and criteria for planetGOLD. And we've developed some very easy to use apps to apply in your own different contexts. Hopefully you will be able to adapt to each of your own particular conditions and adapt it to your own situations. Here you have the QR codes to access this information. And now let's get into it. I hope that this is productive and useful for all of you, ladies and gentlemen. In this last part of the advisory session, our mission was to develop a pilot project using a digital mechanism to assess compliance with planetGOLD criteria. However, before we get into this, as a presenter, I would like to ask a favor of you. If you could please use this QR code, we would love it if you could scan it, because we want to ask a couple questions, some basic questions, and to see what it means to you or how familiar you are with planetGOLD criteria. So please make sure to scan this QR code. We will also be sharing the link via the chat. And we hope, and again, you can answer. We have 3 questions, all in English, French, and Spanish. So please raise your hand or let me know somehow if you were able to scan the link and to scan the code and you've made it to the website. Perfect then. And in fact, it seems we already have some answers. So on your screens, on your mobile phone screens, you should be able to see the question, and you, at the same time, while clicking on the option, surely you'll be able to see the possible answers in English, Spanish, or French. We are on question number 1 right now. Which of the following criteria were created specifically for the planetGOLD program? Option 1, option 2, or option 3. So I will give you a couple more seconds so that you can all answer the question. I don't know if you're having, okay, we have 5 answers coming in, great. I don't know if maybe you're having any, sorry, six answers, sorry. You have one more answer. So on this question, which of the following criteria were created specifically for the planetGOLD program? Well, most of the answers was option number 2, which says D. Option D, elimination of mercury plus respect for the rights of indigenous communities, and 3rd, environmental protection. So those of you who answered the question using option number 2, you are correct. You are well informed on that matter. Let's go then to the next question. Question number 2. In this sense, what we would like to ask you is, or assess, is do you believe that planetGOLD criteria is in compliance with the craft code? We have 1 answer, 5 answers, 6 answers, 7, 8. And the answers are geared towards, or well, they are oriented more towards to the fact that yes, indeed, planetGOLD criteria are all in compliance with the craft code standard. Yes. Excellent. Now, if you agree, let's go then to the final question, to the next question, sorry. So this question has to do with how many modules are included in the planetGOLD criteria. We have 3 options. In this case, option number 1 says we have 4 modules and 3 additional criteria. Option number 2, there's 10 modules in the craft code, and option number 3, which states that it does not specify, there is no specific number of modules in the planetGOLD criteria. So I see that, yes, we have 3 answers. Answers keep rolling in. We have 4 now, and considering the answers that we received before, I believe some people still haven't answered. Either you're still thinking about it, or maybe we need a little more time to answer. Okay, 5 answers, great. Let's wait for a couple more seconds. 6 answers. And I'm still missing 2 people who also answered the previous question. But no, yeah, okay. So yes, all participants answered. So yes, we picked answer number 1. It means planetGOLD criteria are comprised of 4 modules and 3 additional criteria, which we had already assessed before. So yes, thank you very much. This was just an exercise to have a quick reminder and a brief overview, and it also gives me an idea as to how informed we are on planetGOLD criteria. Okay, then let's then continue. And let's now talk a little bit more about how this exercise, how this tool works, how it's built up, and how it follows planetGOLD criteria. So as you have demonstrated very well, it is very clear, you have very clear knowledge about the planetGOLD criteria, and we have 3 modules on the craft code, which also enshrine the planetGOLD criteria. We have the internal management system, that's module number 1. We also have a second module, which is related to legitimacy and the formality of the operations. There's a third criterion here about the social aspects and the human rights focus, which are considered to be critical. And I have to clarify this. Here we take the risks included in annexation 2 from the OTE due diligence process. So this involves generalized sexual violence. It also includes involvement of supply chains with armed groups outside of the state. And we have one final module, which is, well, through the due diligence and following as per the OTE guidelines, it allows us for some space to mitigate certain risks. And this focuses especially on anti-money laundering activities and prevention of the financing of terrorism. There are other modules that also include management policies within mining organizations. And in the second part of the screen, we see those 3 additional criteria A, B, and C, which were added and therefore are not within the craft code. These are considered additional criteria in our tool from the planetGOLD program. That includes elimination of mercury. This is a fundamental criterion, and it is of mandatory compliance for entities and mining organizations that wish to meet these planetGOLD criteria. Second point, respect for the rights and for the rights of indigenous communities. And sorry. Marilyn. Yes. Sorry, I just wanted to ask whether you could go a little slower for interpretation, please. All right. Thank you. Now we wanted to very quickly show you what was the history behind the development of this application, of this tool. What we want to do here is to tell you that what was applied, well, before we presented it before you, it was first presented under the MAPE context in Ecuador for 3 small-scale mining organizations. That was done between September of 2024 and March of 2025. And several adjustments have ensued between the first and second versions of the tool. I just wanted to clarify that, to explain that this has already been applied in a real-life context for our interest and purpose. Now, I would like to talk a little bit more about this tool now as to how it works. There's 3 very simple steps. In a moment, we will carry out a more practical exercise. So the first point is that data and information coming from planetGOLD criteria are collected through the Kobo Toolbox tool. And this tool then allows us to, well, it's the first tool that the miner is familiarized with, the first one they will manage. The second has is about what exactly happens with that information. This information is collected and analyzed through the Bloom platform. Now, this platform was recruited by the consulting agency through a selection process, and it was ultimately developed by NGO Impact. And after that, we carry out information analysis, and this third point is connected to a visualization process. So that's the 1, 2, 3. Those are the 3 basic steps to use the SAP. We will show you in a moment. We'll show you in a moment a bit more detail. And yes, we want to get closer to these steps. So as we said before, we have Kobo Toolbox. Now, this is a platform with some very important features that are relevant to the context of small-scale mining and artisanal mining. Its use is quite intuitive. It's very easy to use. I imagine that many of you have already used it, and surely you benefited from it in several projects. And hopefully, for your own purposes as well, when you work with planetGOLD criteria and planetGOLD sessions. Now, a second feature is that it can also collect data without using an internet connection. Point number 3 is that it can be used free of charge. It is free. And the fourth important feature here is that the app allows us to use several languages for data collection. So from these data collection platforms, I would have to say this one is very handy. It's very appropriate for the purposes and the activities of the mapping. We'd also like to explain how this tool is, what it's comprised of, and how it includes its assessment mechanisms for planetGOLD criteria. In total, we have 209 questions for application of this tool in the MAPE context. So, as we've discussed before, the number of questions is divided in a per module basis. So yes, we have close to 40 questions in module 1. We have 9 questions in module 2. Module 3 has a considerable amount of questions, right above 50. Module 4 has 67 questions. And planetGOLD criteria includes 41 questions. We would also like to say that on the left part of the screen, you will see that the answers that miners can upload using this tool can be done by uploading documents. It can also be done through yes or no questions, meaning questions with two possible answers. And finally, you can also answer in text when the questions are open. Now that's the first feature. And in the presentation, we would like to highlight, especially in module 3, because as you may be able to see, each of the models has a specific ponderated weight, if that makes sense. And it also includes a part for risk interpretation, especially module 3, which has the critical risks contemplated in the due diligence guidelines from OCDE. Module 4, risks with possible mitigation strategies. And so, yes, you can see here that these modules these have a greater significance. These have a greater weight compared to modules 1 and 2. Now, the intent behind this is to better identify, better characterize those obstacles and the most important risks to which an organization to which an organization is faced with when it comes to compliance with planetGOLD criteria. We would now like to give you a little more detail, or explain this to make a distinction between modules, requirements, and criteria. So we have, yes, 4 modules plus planetGOLD criteria. As we were saying, each of them has its own requirements. Module 1 has, CR1 module has 6 requirements. In legitimacy, we have 4 requirements, depending on the context of the country, so on and so forth. And out of these requirements, we have some resulting criteria, which are used for some of the approval modules. Now, there are modules that allow a progressive road to compliance, as you can see highlighted in yellow. In module 3 specifically, we have a particular feature. These criteria are either complied with or they're not. It's a yes or no, meaning that following OCDE recommendations, there is no real way towards mitigation. And for each of the modules, we also have nonconformity criteria, i.e. those that are clearly not in compliance with the program requirements. So, sorry, not defining the program, defining the criteria, my apologies. So now let's carry on with the use of the tool Bloom. So what does this allow for exactly? What does this platform allow for? First, weighted and averaged results and progressive outcomes or progressive results from the planetGOLD tool. Now, all of those are clearly based on what we mentioned before, on those weighted averages or those that assigned relevance in the previous step. Now, the second feature is the crossing of this data with sustainable development. This is very well developed in the tool. It allows us to see and to gauge the contribution of these mining organizations and how they perform on sustainable development criteria. So eventually we could share this report with groups of special interest and these outcomes as well. And now going into further detail as to what we can find in the Bloom platform, as you'll notice in the right side of your screens. At first, we see that the performance is scored or gauged compared to the planetGOLD criteria for any given mining organization. It also shows the summary of the number of identified risks, as you see in the second table in the screen. Some risks are characterized. Some of them are in red, they're also in orange, and finally in yellow, all of which represent the most critical risks of non-compliance with planetGOLD criteria, and finally, significant risks to the mining organizations. And for each of these modules, there's a third question in the lower part of the screen. You can look at the outcomes, the results for each one of the criteria.
One second, Christian, perdón, I don't hear the English interpretation. 1 second. It just paused.
Apologies. We just switched and I was in the wrong channel. My
No
apologies.
problem. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this platform allows us at a second glance to delve a little bit deeper into the level of compliance and the scoring of those assessed criteria. In other words, at a first glance, it's a general visualization, if you will, and in the second view, we can ascertain it is more slanted, if you will, toward those criteria. So we can see on this right corner of this table the assigned scoring and the level of achievement of each one of the requisites. So over here, we can also filter all of these points that were assigned by level per module and by the other criteria. Then we have another view by all of those data that have been collected. It's important to point out that this visualization allows us, in principle, to review the answers that the mining organizations provided to each one of the questions that were set forth with their corresponding criterion. This allows us to have a little bit further detail with regard to what was finally mentioned or that was self-assessed by a mining association, and allows us to filter in the second characteristics the risks, or shall we say, those red flags, if you will, in light of these pre-identified levels of risks or that were predetermined by the platform. And so, as you can ascertain in this example, for this particular case, we have seen a couple of red flags with some of the risks related to child labor in the mining agency that were answered as no. So in this case, we set up an alert on the platform so that this may be easily assessed. Lastly, we wanted to show you this different results and views with sustainable development objectives, SDSs, and how it is contributing toward sustainable development goals. And we can achieve this through that cross-sharing of information between planetGOLD criteria with the SDSs. So, SDG. So here is the visualization of this tool. So now we would like to make use of this space to show you in a more practical manner how this platform is used. So we're going to show you the user's guide that is used for you for each one of the countries so that you may assess these. And we're going to visit the web page as well. So now we're going to leave the presentation for a minute and we will show you now the user's guide. Okay, here we go. I would like to say hello to everyone, by the way, just to assure myself that you can hear me well. Yes? Somebody give me a heads up. Okay, great. All right, now, in this section, we're going to give you the structure of this user's guide from Bloom so that you may consider the fact that you can use it just in case you have any questions or concerns about how you can visualize and interpret or download the various different data. In this guide, you have the project as a summary that gives you a little bit of a context concerning the development of this platform. The first portion that Christian was telling you about regarding data gathering, you have another portion about the use of Bloom that provides a very good idea about how you can visualize the data and how you can also download these. Here we have the profile and how you can navigate this platform. Now, at the bottom, as Christian also mentioned, there is an added value concerning the contributions by mining organizations with the SDGs. And you have the portion how you can interpret and develop them and what this could mean within the platform. Just for you to know then that this guide does exist and you have access to this guide in English, Spanish, and French. Okay, then now we're going to go on to the more practical side of things in Bloom so that everything that was told to you by Christian can see it in reality. Okay, so we're going to share another screenshot here. Can everybody see the screen? Somebody give me a heads up, please, with Bloom.
Sí. Sí.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to have this panel on the left that will provide the various titles of where you can go on to. What's going to be important for you is going to be the dashboard and reports. So far, these are the two main elements or two chapters where you're going to be able to see the information, download it even, and interpret it. So it's important for you to keep these two elements in mind. The first dashboard that you can see here will provide some basic data on all of the toolboxes that have been collected. You're going to have that there. Now, if you have your team, for example, the Ecuador planetGOLD team or global team, you're going to see all of your colleagues here just for you to see who may have access to the platform and all of the data. Now, at this portion, if you want to develop a little bit more that is a little bit different concerning planetGOLD, you're going to see it here. And over here, you're going to have all the information on the surveys that have been collected. For example, if I take advances on the planetGOLD application and I have a source, I'm going to say all, and I'm going to say the last 12 months. Here, immediately, you will see in the last 12 months, we had 3 responses. In other words, full COBOL surveys that were performed in February of 25. And this is one way for you to have access to the macro portion of the surveys that have been collected and that allow you to have information on the mines and their compliance on planetGOLD criteria. And it is here, as a matter of fact, that you're going to be able to see the progress made on the various different organizations for mining. Now, the dashboard, the second one again is reports. It's also very important for you. This portion has 2 main elements, which is reporting, and the other one is my view. Let's start with this one with reporting. Now, as you can see some information on how this is working. If you want to take it out, you can sort of reduce it. You have some filters. We're going to take the first mining organization, the first one here, ME1, has information. We're going to see advances if the application of the planetGOLD and the sources that mining organization has. So we were told that they were responsible by the mining entity that responded to that planetGOLD survey. And you have two options here. You can download the data report, and that will provide an Excel sheet where you will see all the data. And likewise, you're going to be able to see it here by clicking on Generate Report. So if I generate a report here, we will see the number of questions that have been answered in this Kobo toolbox on planetGOLD criteria. And then we will see all of the information on the data that have been collected. As you can see here, these are the various questions that correspond to the various criteria that at the same time correspond to the requisites contained in the modules. Over here, the person who answered them and the possible responses, if applicable. Now, we've been told here that for that particular question and source, the person answered one yes. So that's why we have a bar that shows one. And if there are any other type of answers that are yes or no, it could be reports. You have the opportunity here to download these reports to have further information on what was delivered as proof of the various responses. So that in and of itself is important, allowing you to also ascertain the raw data of the various surveys that have been collected for the mining entity. So this is a very interesting portion to know so that you may interpret the data a little bit later on. The most important thing is to go into My Views. Now we're going to take the case of this Miravilla. As Christian showed you, we have a main dashboard that gives us the general performance of this mining organization, and you can see the filters. For example, we can go to module number 3, and it tells me that we have a risk of being disliaised with the buyer. So we have one criterion that is answered, and that gives us a red flag or alert. Here you can see the various alerts as well, and see perhaps which are the options for improvement that you may have to ensure the compliance with planetGOLD criteria. And so you have the various parts as shown by Christian. Just to show you here that you can do the filters from the various module bars. Let's see. It's loading slowly but surely. If you allow me just a second here. Concerning the translation, are we okay? Am I going too fast? As far as the Spanish is fine. Okay, then I'm going to assume that everything's okay. All right. You could also choose the filters. You have another option to do it through here. The important thing here are the alerts that are contained here that allow you to know a little bit more about what are the points that you are alerted to. Over here, you have over the modules, you have the modules and criteria. Remember here that we have module criteria, and within the criteria, we have the requisites, we have the various criteria. So concerning the criteria, you have the possibility to filter things out regarding these modules. So let's take M2. And on the level of achievement of each one of these criteria, the type of legal context of the mining operation. For example, we don't have any data. But over here, for example, we have a level of achievement that's excellent. So we have a score of 1. The scores are always going to be between 0 and 1, just to keep that in mind. So that's the interpretation of the various criteria contained within the modules here with the possibility of filtering. And finally, we have data gathering or compilation. In this portion, we can finally see how all the questions were answered providing the opportunity in this scoring side, if there was any alert that is being highlighted. Over here, you also have the responses, whether it's yes or no, or with the various different deliverables provided. Here, for example, there's an Excel that was done with the list of the members of that mining operation. Here we have the opportunity to filter out the requirements and the modules. And finally, over here, you have the SDGs for the various indicators. Over here, we have a scope of 90% or 30% here for this SDG. So just to ensure that everything is clear, the dashboard portion, which is very important for you, just so you know how the information was gathered, the reporting portion, where we finally have the raw data on reporting, and in the visualization and interpretation of the data, we have my view. That is what will allow you to ascertain the data, to interpret, and download them. So now I will now give the floor to Christian so we can see an example of how the Kobo Toolbox operates. Thank you very much, Chris, for that. I am now going to go back to my presentation and to clarify, if I may, or add to what's been already said by Christoph, that this Bloom tool within its users that he was mentioning, we could have the strategic allies from these mining organizations. For example, buyers, for example, other regulators from the sector. So this tool is very useful and has this ease of access for these various stakeholders. So please confirm for me, if you would, if you can see my screen.
Ahorita no, Cristian, todavía. Sí, ok,
Not yet,
ahorita sí.
Christian. Okay, now we see it. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So as a conclusion or the final portion of this information or this workshop that we're imparting, we wanted to take you now to a case study, or a very small one really, because of time constraints, in which you're going to be able to form part of or to make use of this exercise to sort of work as an organization who is answering the Kobo Toolbox questions. And in this case, we have this mining organization called New Future, Nuevo Futuro. And we're going to select a few of the questions. Again, because of time constraints, I think we're going to be able to address just a few questions of criteria number one. And the idea is to answer this criterion. The mineral producer has designated a point of contact for claims. What's the next idea? Then you're going to see a Kobo form. In this Kobo form, you're going to be able to input and you're going to be able to answer some questions derived from this mining operation called Nuevo Futuro. So please, if you would again, let's access to this QR code in your smartphones to visualize this questionnaire with these questions taken from planetGOLD criteria. And you're going to be able to see then this form with the pre-selected questions. I would like to highlight that on the upper left-hand side, you have the option to select your preferred language, whether English, Spanish, or French. So then, likewise, the link is also contained in the chat. If you would like to go in through there via the link. And so that you can also consider the fact that these questionnaires can also be answered from your smartphone or mobile device or from your desktop, laptop, or tablet. So this is the practical case of the Nuevo Futuro mining organization, which is as follows. So this mining organization tells us that it has a website where anyone can express their concerns or complaints related with their operation. However, there is no protocol that exists that shows how this SMA compiles and manages this information formally. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the information and how this little table has been compiled, this format to gather all of these complaints or concerns. So in this form, you can see a couple of questions related to this module number 1. So the first question, have you designated a responsible person for complaints and conflicts in this mining organization? You have to then answer, according to this particular case, whether yes or no. The second question, in your opinion, can this person act with sufficient independence as a conflict mediator in case of complaints? Okay. If you can raise your hand, if you're able to access the Kobo to the questions formulated. Hello, Christian. Hello, Christian. I'm Pablo Rodriguez from Honduras. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you. I was able to go into it and I answer the question in this case that is associated to the issue of complaints because of child labor, and the rest of the questions were associated to the same topic. So how are we able to see the comprehensive questions from planetGOLD? In other words, I assume that this link was associated only to child labor issues. So it was done exactly to demonstrate this exercise in this tool. Yes, yes, Pablo, exactly. Justice was mentioned by you. Yes, it was built with these, well, how with these recommendations and under the parameters of planetGOLD criteria. So therefore, Pablo, since you were kind enough to answer, you were able to answer the questionnaire that you could open, whether through your smartphone or through your computer. Is that right? Yes, yes, I opened it through my smartphone and I answered and hit send, and I saw the screen that looked empty. So it didn't really give me any feedback about whether the form was sent successfully. Okay, well, that must be because we really had the intent of being able to make the other questions from the criteria, but because of time constraints, we proposed just answering these few that are liaised to this first module. So the other colleagues I have seen, I can show you a little bit about the result we obtained, but I only saw just one single answer. Perhaps you haven't hit send to the forms. That might be the problem. However, hmm, well, just to clarify, the idea of the exercise is for you to be able to answer that and that you can see how the process goes. If you answer this in the toolbox, then you get that information, and that information, in the case of the Planet Go criteria, would go on directly to Bloom. And then the dashboard portion that we showed you, that's where you would see it. You would see the number of answers that you have provided in this exercise, and then stemming from there, you can visualize the data. In this particular exercise, we only set a few questions just to give you a sort of feel of how this operates. But it's not all of the Planet Gold criteria that are being shown within this form, of course. It's just so you can interact with Kobo and see how it operates. Now, when you answer a few questions, the idea is to send them, remember that? But you can also go back to that same survey. And if at a later time you want to modify your answers, you can do so. You're given that possibility. Okay. So once we have made this practical exercise, because of time issues, as we said, we're not going to be able to continue with the other questions that we had. However, the presentation, well, you have them, and we can clearly share this questionnaire so that you can see it later on at your leisure, and to make use of the space now, we're going to open this up for our Q&A session. I saw Pablo has his hand raised. So you have the floor, Pablo. Please go ahead. Thank you very much. I just wanted to, I came in a little late to the meeting, so I don't know what the link this could have with other criteria. I'm asking this with regard to the pros or versatile that the platform can be as to be able to assess the craft code criteria. Well, yes. Thank you for your question, Pablo. When we consider the Planet Go criteria, or 4 out of the 5 that contained in the craft code, they're already covered by the Planet Go criteria. So it does have a lot of coverage on the craft code. Perhaps we would only be missing that module number 5 is missing. So basically, I would say maybe 80% of the craft code criteria are already covered by this Planet Gold tool. So I think would say it's pretty close to this standard of best craft practices, Pablo. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sure. Yes. Okay. So lastly, we would like to thank everyone. Oh, we're getting some feedback. Okay, we got it. All right. So we would like to thank all of you and ask you for a favor to be able to fill out this survey. It'll take you less than 5 minutes. And here we're giving you the QR code just for you. If you want to get to know a little bit more about this Bloom tool, we have our contact there, and as well as who the platform developer is. And in this link, we are asking you that if you are interested in knowing a little bit more about this, you can leave us with your data so we can contact you. So that's the end of our presentation. And if we have any other comments or anything else, we'd like to thank you for this space and your time. And on behalf of the Responsible Mining Agency, would like to give Mona the floor for final comments.